Welcome you again to another edition of Liberia Shall Rise. I'm your host, Emmanuel George. I'm glad to be here this Sunday afternoon in your homes with you. We have a very interesting program this evening. My colleague that is always here with me, Mr. Sheriff, is currently in Liberia, and he will be reporting to us from there sometime along on one of these weekends. Dr. Positive will be joining me soon. So if you're out there, want you to just share the video while we go into our introduction music. You can share the video, share the program, and we look forward to having a very interesting discussion on This Could Be You on Liberia Shall Rise.
To his command. It is then that we shall rise, we shall pursue, we shall overtake, and we shall conquer all of our adversaries, and we shall shout at last, the Lone Star forever, the Lone Star forever, oh long may it flow, oh.
Good evening again, and welcome to this edition of Liberia Shall Rise. My name is Emmanuel George, and this is our segment, This Could Be You. I want to welcome our friends on Facebook, YouTube, and those of you joining us from Monrovia, Liberia, please share the video. My name again is Emmanuel George. I'm your host. I will be joined later by Dr. Positive. Mr. Sheriff, who is here with us most of the evening, is currently on his vacation to Liberia, and he will be joining us on subsequent edition. Welcome to Liberia Shall Rise, the program that brings a new spin to the Liberian discourse. On this platform, we firmly believe that Liberia has all the potential to be a great nation if all of us do our part. This is the reason we do not spend countless hours discussing what ifs or what is wrong, but what is and what will be. Therefore, tonight we continue the series, This Could Be You. We are aware of the gloomiest realities of our nation. We are aware of the situation that took place on the campuses of the University of Liberia. We are often confronted with hundreds of Facebook Live videos that seem to serve the sole purpose of berating one of our own to the point of stupor. In most of our community, there appears to be an absence of role models. Have you ever thought about a Liberia that is living up to its fullest potential? A Liberia that is the beacon of hope for the people of West Africa. Despite the unfolding gloomy news, there are hundreds of Liberians who are beating the odds. Theirs is the story of success that we believe is necessary to share on this platform. From local government to the classroom, people of Liberian origins are making meaningful impact. They are highly influential in their areas of speciality. We are certain that as our guests share their stories, you will be motivated as we are on this platform. It is certain that we too can summon the strength to rise above our current situation despite the odds that seems to be against us. Again, these Liberians that shall be our guests in this series, this could be you too, could be the beacon of hope that should lead you to the realization that Liberia shall indeed rise again. Our guest tonight is a professor of radiology, the former professor and chair of the Department of Radiology at the A.M. Dogliotti College of Medicine of the University of Liberia. He was also the chief radiologist at the John F. Kennedy Medical Center in Monrovia, Liberia. Join me this evening as we welcome our guest, Dr. Joseph Diggs. Good evening, Dr. Diggs, and welcome to Liberia Shall Rise.
Good evening, Dr. George. Happy to be here.
Thank you. How are you today?
Well, what can I say? I'm very well, considering my advanced age. I feel very well.
Thank you. I mean, I want to, first of all, on behalf of our audience, appreciate you taking off time off your schedule. And as you say, at your advanced age, to share your story with us. When I first heard about you and your story, I said, well, it would be awesome for us to share the story of a great Liberian, the first radiology in our nation. So to start, let us just start by first asking who is Dr. Joseph Diggs?
Dr. Joseph Diggs is a Liberian. Dr. Joseph Diggs is a Liberian whose early education was born in Edina City, the Three River City of Grand Bassa County, in the year 1935. And I was reared by my maternal grandfather. Our father, having predeceased me, my mother was pregnant with me when my father was accidentally drowned, and were reared by my maternal grandfather, who did a wonderful job, took us through education, my siblings and I. From the Morris Elementary School to 1 year in CWA, and terminating at the St. John's Episcopal High School in Robertsport, Cape Mount, where I am a member of the class of 1953.
Wow. That's great. I mean, you seem to have crisscrossed the country. You started in Grand Bassa, which is on the other side of, if we take Monrovia as the compass, the other side of Monrovia, ended in Grand Cape Mount County. What took you to Grand Cape Mount County? What was happening at that time that you have? Because I know that there used to be good schools in Buchanan. There was, I think, the Catholic has the Carver High School, if I'm not getting that wrong, wrong. So those high school had good reputation in Liberia when we were when I was growing up. So
absolutely. Even they had a school in Edina. They called it the Edina Day School or something that my wife graduated from.
Okay.
But the reason really is that my grandfather had a law practice in Monrovia.
Okay.
And we spent our time between Grand Bassa and Monrovia. He was also at one point in time senator from Grand Bassa County. So in those days, if you were a senator from a county, you spent your time in the county when you were not in session. You didn't come, live in Monrovia. So that can explain why when we were in Monrovia, we went to school in Monrovia, and in Bassa went to school. And in fact, I went to school sometime at St. Peter's Clevers.
Okay.
In Buchanan. So, and then after I graduated from St. John's Episcopal High School in 1953, I took a year off because I thought I had learned a lot of book. I was educated. And decided to go to LU for one semester and see what it would be like. But I felt that the Latin that I had learned at St. John's Episcopal High School was more advanced than I was being taught in my first year at LU.
Wow.
That was a cop out, really, because I really didn't want to go to college.
Okay.
I was, however, encouraged to go to college by an uncle of mine. And he just threw out suggestions. He said, why don't you try Cuttington? But for me, Cuttington was way up in the bushes, and I didn't want to go to the bushes. But several of my classmates from St. John's High School had gone to Cuttington, and they were 1 year ahead of me already. So I decided I would double up, go up there, and join them. And it was one of the best decisions that I made. And I got up there and majored in biology. And I don't know why, but Cuttington University at that time was Cuttington College and Divinity School.
Okay.
So I took a minor in comparative theology.
Whoa.
I don't regret that because, I have an inkling of some of the things that involve theology and religion and that kind of thing. So I think I can stand my ground on that also.
Okay.
But having graduated from Cuttington College and Divinity School, I matriculated to the University of Geneva in Switzerland to study dentistry initially. Well, when I got there, a close cousin of mine was in the same university, and he said, why you want to be looking down people's mouths, all day when you can, do the whole body, the whole thing, And he encouraged me, so I switched from dentistry to the full medical program.
Okay. That's great. This has been successful along the way. You had some encouragement that took you to Cuttington. Now you have a bachelor's degree, I believe, in biology and a minor in theology. You find yourself in Geneva. How did you get to Geneva? Is it that was it an opportunity from the government, or you just applied to get to university in Switzerland?
I just applied. This same relative who was my uncle said to me, now that you graduated from Cuttington College with this Bachelor of Science in Biology, what are you going to do with it? Biologists, the sky is not the limit for you. So think of something. And that's when I thought, I said, well, with all of this basic science, I could go into dentistry or medicine. And what sent me to, and he said to me, look, if you find a school that will accept you, I will pay for it.
Oh.
So I wrote to several universities, the United States, Britain, places in Europe and Switzerland. And the first acceptance letter I got came from the University of Geneva. So I went to him and said, Geneva accepted me. He said, give me a budget. Here's a plane ticket. When you get there, let me know what it costs. And we'll go from there, which we did.
Okay. So you were young at this time. So I just want the audience to picture that you were young at this, even though we're talking about 1935. Sometimes we start looking at the years, we're not calculating the age of the person at that time. So when you graduated from St. John's, you were about 18 years old. Am I right?
Correct. Okay. Correct.
And then by the time you graduated from Cottington, you were around 25 years old or thereabout.
Yes.
So going to Geneva, you were during those times. I mean, in Liberia at that time, people would say, "Oh, you're quite a young man leaving home, going to live in Switzerland."
Yeah.
So, and I believe you had to learn a new language because I think they speak German and French in Switzerland. If I'm right.
They speak German, French, Italian, and they used to have a fourth language called Romansh, which is practically extinct now. I think only a few thousand Swiss people can understand it. It's like a mixture of German and Italian, all a mixture of things. But it's no longer an official language in Switzerland. Switzerland has 3 official languages: German, Swiss, and French, and Italian.
So as a young man in your 20s, you now in this foreign country that speaks a language that perhaps you did not have any idea. Maybe French in Liberia. Once in a while, we thought we had to learn French in high school. I don't know about your time, but when I was much younger in high school, we had to learn some kind of French, which we later on found out was not something to make us not to make us adequate enough when we became refugees in Cote d'Ivoire and other neighboring countries. So how you navigated that field as a young person?
It was horrendous. It was horrible because let's give it to Cottington College. All of my credits that I had at Cottington were accepted at the University of Geneva.
Wow.
So when I arrived, instead of going into the basic sciences, I entered the second section, which was the anatomy and physiology section of the medical school. There's a slight difference between the medical curriculum in the United States and in Europe. For example, if you enter the University of Geneva or any of the European universities and you indicate your professional end, for example, medicine, you are handed a student's book. Whether you enter where I entered, at the stage that I entered, or in the basic sciences like biology and chemistry and that kind of thing. But you sailed on seamlessly from there until you graduated as a medical doctor. In America, I could go to Vanderbilt and graduate summa cum laude but that doesn't guarantee me a position in the medical school. I have to reapply to the same university, which makes it kind of difficult because it's very, very competitive. That's why I'm so happy I ended up in Europe. But navigating this, your question is, how did I navigate it? I studied German. You're right. We had the option of doing French, as a foreign language. But Cuttington had a very strong German program. And I wanted to be a little different. So instead of doing French, I studied German.
Wow.
And it was later on, I discovered it was a good thing that I did, because even though the lectures in Geneva were given in French, which I had no idea of, later on, I did practice in parts of Switzerland where they spoke German. So that wasn't lost. But if I tell you the story of my French at the University of Geneva, it was so horrible. It was so, I couldn't believe it. I get in this class, the professor walks in, he takes out his notes, and he begins to speak something. And I'm sitting there. I'm understanding absolutely nothing. It was discouraging. It was like depressing. So I wrote back to my uncle and I said, look, we've made a mistake. I need a one-way ticket back to Monrovia, because you're wasting your money and I'm wasting my time here.
Okay.
He sent me a 2 or 3 line reply. He said, it's my money and it's your time. Now, if you want to waste your time, it's your business. But I don't think I'm wasting my money, because you're a bright young man, and whatever, obstacles there will be, I'm sure you'll be able to. Well, he sent me a boost in the arm, a shot in the arm. And he said, then I said to myself, well, if this man can take the chance and have this confidence in me, then who am I to say no? And so I buckled down and I started to learn the language. In fact, Switzerland is a small country, and they're kind of conservative people. Mm. But if they like you, you can be, like one of their brothers. And so I got in a clique with a few of my classmates who helped me to learn French. And one of the ways they did it is this guy said to me, look, his dad was a pharmacist. He said, we're having a party at my dad's house, and I see you are wasting your time speaking English with these American students. You will never learn French if you do that. Mm-hmm. So I'm going to set you up with a blind date who speaks no English, which he did. And the rest is history.
Okay. I mean, it's amazing because sometimes when we sit back and look at your success record, I mean, looking at what I have here, success record, we do not know that the courage it took. And sometimes there are some people behind, like your uncle, who say, well, it's my money, it's your time. I'm not wasting my money. If you want to waste your time, you can decide to do that.
Exactly what he said.
We all need someone in life that helps to push us during those trying times. But before I move to the next step, when you graduated from the University of Switzerland School of Medicine, what was your position in your class, if you care to share that with us?
I don't know really, because I could guess. The grading system is completely different.
Okay.
And I will come back to some of the difficulties that I had, because not being fluent in the language in the beginning, there were courses that I actually flunked. I had to take over. But when I got my certificate, the grading system goes from 1 to 6. 1 is complete failure. 2 is failing. 3 is like, yeah. Yeah. From 4, if you have 4 in the 4, anatomy, physiology, biochemistry, and histology, you pass. Now, if you got 6, that would be something like an A+.
Yeah.
Okay, and from 4 to 4, 5, 6, that would be something like 80, 90, and 75, 80, and 90. So it was a very narrow margin, not like 60, 70, 80, 90, from 1 to 6.
Okay.
It was, but when I did it, I put myself up in the 5 to 6 range.
Wow. Wow. And it's amazing, Dr. Diggs, because you see, the reason I asked the question is for our audience to learn something. You enter this university not speaking a language. You find yourself in this challenging situation. A friend of yours, set you up on a blind date. Now you're speaking the language. And you live in a medical school with flying colors in this strange country. With the help of your uncle, blessings be upon him for having that foresight and believing in you. And there are many of us, thousands of us in the world, that's Liberians and other people of different nationality, that is watching this program this evening. And there is something that is just pulling them back, and some of them want to give up. But just the beginning of your story, because I know there's several levels we have to go through, but we just at the beginning of this story, you could have, even though your uncle was saying the money, I know of a situation when I was a student in Hapo. I know a situation of a family who would have sent the child overseas. He did not study anything. When he came back, he came back, said he had an a degree in engineering, and they gave him an old truck to repair, and nothing came out of that. So you are stay in Switzerland and have fun. Have good time, enjoy yourself, and come back to Liberia but you didn't make it through that despite the situation. And thank you for doing that. And that's a source of encouragement to myself, Dr. Positive in the background, and thousands of Liberians that is watching us. But after that, after you graduated from medical school in 1967, you decided to go into radiology. For our audience, because I guess many of us don't really know what radiology is all about. So can you first of all explain what radiology is all about, and then tell us what actually motivated you to go in that field, in the field of radiology?
Yeah, here we go. After graduating from medical school, I returned. The late Dr. Murray Barclay was one of the directors of public health, ministers of public health. And he put the bug in my ear to say, look, the government is looking for Liberians because we're building this big hospital, the John F. Kennedy Hospital, and we will need our own to come back and take positions as medical doctors and to eventually run this place as is being set up now. Foreign doctors will be running the JFK, but they will have to be phased out if we want to prove our point.
Okay.
So there were several government scholarships: pathology, radiology, pediatrics, and several of us accepted and went back to specialize. I chose radiology. I chose radiology because in medical school, one of the things that I realized that I could not understand is, why is it I am learning all of this science of medicine, and when I go back home, somebody's going to come into my office and say, "Doctor, I have a headache. I have a fresh cold," like we say in Liberia, a common cold. And I know that I cannot cure the common cold. But that person who was sitting across from me has such faith and confidence in me. This is why he or she came into my office, because I'm going to the doctor. I expect some results. I would say, okay, take this tablet. Or in Liberia, when I was there, if you don't give somebody an injection, the person say that doctor is a no good doctor. So you have to give an injection. And all of this was a placebo effect. I think most of it was a placebo effect. And this patient left feeling, oh yeah, that's Dr. Diggs is a good doctor. But in my mind, I felt, why don't I enter a field where I can at least learn to find out, make the diagnosis of what is going on with this patient, and let somebody else go worry about curing the patient. Radiology is, it started off in a very interesting way. People were working on both in here in the United States, in Philadelphia, and in Europe, on how to image what we read about, what we're teaching our students. And in 1895, there's a story of this German physician, Professor Wilhelm Röntgen, who was experimenting in his lab.
Oh, Oh, audience, I'm sorry. We're going to take a musical break. It seems that we lost Dr. Dees. He's going to be coming on, and it's such an interesting story. You don't want to miss it. So we'll be right back after this musical interlude. Share the show and invite your friends to listen to it. We are on YouTube and Facebook. Good evening. This is Liberia Shall Rise. I'm Emmanuel George, and we have been interviewing Dr. Joseph Dix, the first radiologist for the Republic of Liberia, chief radiologist at the JFK Medical Center, and also professor of radiology at the University of Liberia. He went on to become a research associate and associate professor at the Department of Radiology at Vandenberg University. We lost him. I'm sure he's relocking on now. Okay, he's coming in, but we have Dr. Positive. Dr. Positive, you're on mute. You're on mute. You're on mute.
I'm back. I just wanted to say something that he said, and I'll jump back in the engineering room.
Okay.
You know, he says something that I really, really love, and he said somebody in the government reached out to him. And told him that he should do radiology, right? And because of that, today he became a radiologist. So my thing was, how did he become sincere to go back to life? Because I'm seeing a lot of young people now they are being sent away by the government to study, and then they come and they decide to stay. Where did you get that sincerity from to go back to Liberia? I will step back in the background. How are you doing, doctor?
Doing well.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you, Dr. Positive.
You want me to answer that right now?
Yeah, if you want to, Prof. If you want
to. It's a wonderful story. In the 70s, 60s, 70s, I can point to no Liberian who traveled abroad, learned his profession, and wanted to stay
overseas.
It didn't exist. Liberia was a bustling, scintillating country. I tell you, my diploma, my medical doctor's diploma that you see behind me here, I didn't even wait for it. After we took the Hippocratic Oath, I jumped on the first airplane and I was back home. They had to mail the diploma to me. It was exciting to be able to come back home and contribute and give back. It was a time in the history of our country where pride in work was the norm. Whether you were a bricklayer or an engineer, a nurse, whatever you was, there was something about Liberia that said, "This is my home. I have something to give, and I'm going back." Almost every Liberian had that. And when we came back, we delivered.
Thank you, Dr. Dix. I'll go back in the background and be the engineer. Thank you.
No,
Very great, Dr. Dix.
It was a wonderful time. When we returned, there was a time that if you wanted to be somebody or called somebody, you were called Honorable so and so, or you were in the government was the largest employer. It came to a point where nobody wanted to work for the government if you had a profession. Now, in our situation, it was hybrid because government educated you. Hospitals, most of the jobs were hospital based, clinical based. So, but the hospitals, you went to the JFK in the morning at 7 o'clock, and you left there at 4 p.m. But between 4 p.m. and 9 p.m., people were still sick. So many of us got together. If you're your friend, I can think of. I will tell you about the clinic that we opened with the late Dr. Watterson, Ambrose Watterson, the late Dr. Woods, another one of our colleagues has died, but Dr. Kate Bryant, who was a pediatrician, Dr. Rubel Brewer, a pathologist, we got together and we opened what we called Medical Associates. And it was a real wonderful, staffed, popular, multi-specialty clinic, which we ran until we had to run.
Okay. Well, I mean, it's so interesting, and our time is just fly from it's not giving us time. And I remember the story. We have the air, but we have the time, but I don't think we have much of it today. So coming back, you got this. You got the government scholarship from the government of Liberia when you specialize in diagnostics radiology. And then you return to Liberia. You have shared the story of returning to Liberia, and you went over to the JFK Medical Center when you got back home. So, what was your experience like coming back to the? And first of all, thank you so much for sharing that you did not even get your certificate. You were on the next plane back to Liberia. But when you got back and you started working at JFK, working at the University of Liberia, what was your experience? There's 24 hours in a day. And out of that 24 hours, you all who are the medical doctors tells us, the rest of us in the society, that we should spend 10 of that 24 hours sleeping. So we have only 12 hours or 14 hours in a day to work and go around. But you are back in Liberia. You're chief radiologist at JFK. You're also a professor at the University of Liberia. And you just sharing with us that you also had a private medical practice. How did you navigate that space?
Not only that, I was the only diagnostic radiologist, the first and only diagnostic radiologist in the country. So working for the government meant that I was charged with researching how to have to open small X-ray clinics in different parts of the country. So I had to fly from to Capamas, to Cape Mount, and to see what the needs were, because you can't run a clinical facility without the ancillary subjects like radiology. It's not possible in these days. So I flew to Harper City. I went to the hospital. They had a small rudimentary X-ray machine that could take maybe X-ray hand extremities, feet, but nothing else. But I saw this guy sweeping, and I asked him, "Where's the X-ray room?" And he showed me the X-ray room. Well, the doctor had just ordered an X-ray of the hand. And I said, "Where's the nurse who's going to take this X-ray?" He said, "Oh, say no, we don't have a nurse here to take the X-ray. I take the X-ray." But he was the guy, the janitor, the sweeper at the hospital. That inspired me to do something else. I traveled at the invitation of some of my colleagues in Switzerland to see what I could do to help, or what we could do, or what to help the situation, because it was dire. It was like, we can't do this. I shut everything down as far as that was concerned, because nobody knew the danger of radiation to the skin and to other organs. And that was malpractice. But I did travel at the invitation of the National Medical and National Radiology Society here in America, and I was invited to give a talk at New Orleans on radiology in West Africa, which I did. That stimulated some of the interest, and they decided to come and visit with us in Liberia. But before I left, I had been given an invitation to meet the first and only Black radiologist who had been awarded the gold medal of the Society of Radiology in the United States. And when I met him, he introduced me to the chief radiologist at Barnes Hospital in St. Louis. And one of the first things this guy asked me was, "How can I help? Can we send you some radiology equipment? Can we do this? Can we do that?" And I said, "Listen, Doc, radiology equipment without brains and people not to who don't know how to operate it, it's useless." He said, "But what can I do? I really want to help." I said, "Can you train 2 X-ray technologists for me?" And he says, "Of course. If you can find 2 of your high school graduates, send them over here. We'll take care of that, free of charge."
Wow.
We had the core X-ray technology program that we had there was made up of 3 X-ray technicians in the whole country. And I cannot tell you how grateful I was to those 3 ladies, women, Mrs. Myrtle Bruce, who headed that group. They really were dedicated. So I came back home, found 2 students, sent them to Missouri. They came back. I had already started a small class of X-ray technologists that I was teaching. And when these came back, we had a core, and we had a wonderful, wonderful. Some of my X-ray technicians are here in America today, making a good life.
You see, these are the stories that many of us don't seem to, and that's one of the reasons why as we started this program on Liberia Shall Rise, because the impact that you have made in the life of radiology in Liberia is extremely important to our country, starting with training technicians, starting a program that would train technicians. And I don't know how well we have written this in the book or we teach it at the University of Liberia, but that is a major impact that you did not only come to a German French speaking country, learn the language, was able to go out there, graduated in the top digits of your class, return home before you could receive your certificate, but then you started to impact. So there are 2 other things I hope we can finish before the hour mark because our time has run out. But there is a question here, and we'll pick it at the end. But what I want to really, as I look at that, and it seems like when I interview your wife, I see that after being chief radiologist in Liberia, after all this impact you're making, traveling throughout this country, coming even to the US to conduct seminars and academic lectures talking about radiology in Liberia, networking with your friends. You came to the US in 1980 and you became a research associate at Vandenberg University. Now, I don't know much about science. I know in my side, I've been in academics for a long time. A research associate is a professor is much higher than a research associate in my side. So I've not been in the science side, but I know that a professor is much higher. So now you are back to the US in 1980, and you seem to have come back to the middle of the ladder in order, because I see you moving gradually after that. It didn't take you so long. It took you 2 years to start going up the ladder. So what motivated you, or what led you to take up a position as a research associate after 7 years as a professor and chairman of the radiology department at the University of Liberia?
I arrived in the United States of America at age 45, and coming to Vanderbilt in Nashville, Tennessee was fortuitous. There was a professor of radiology at Johns Hopkins University who at the time was one of the preeminent researchers of the creation of hydrocephalus. Hydrocephalus is, sometimes you see a big head, large-headed children. It's because the fluid that circulates in the brain is blocked somewhere, and it's called hydrocephalus. Well, this man was using some nuclear medicine injections to find out where these, why this happened. He was being invited all over the world, and he was invited to our university. He gave the lecture. His lecture was in English, my professor asked me to translate for him, which I did. That evening, my wife and I were invited to the professor's place, and we had dinner, and he was excited. Says, if ever you're in my neck of the woods, please, I would like to continue this conversation. Well, I had absolutely no intention of staying in the United States. And when I got back to Liberia, no intention of coming to the United States for anything. All my continuing medical education, I would have preferred doing in Europe. However, when this gentleman returned home, he did send me a note to say thank you and give me an invitation to come to his department of radiology whenever I was in the States. Well, I thought that was very kind and courteous, but I threw the note in the trash because I said this is useless to me. I'm not going to America. He sent me another note. This time he said, I'm now chairman of radiology at Vanderbilt, and I just want to reiterate that my invitation to you, it still stands. And by the way, I understand that you are alone there. Why don't you come over from time to time and do some refresher courses? And I said, fine, I will, but I was busy. But when I got invited to come to the States and called him up, he said, look, as the crow flies, that's a Southern expression, as the crow flies, your airplane is flying over Nashville to go to New York to take you home. Tell the pilot to drop you in Nashville because I really want to continue our conversation. Well, I broke the trip. I gave the talk that I gave in New Orleans. He asked me to stay over until Monday to give the talk to the radiologist residents, which I did. We continued that friendship. And when the coup occurred in 1980, this guy smuggled invitations to me that he was able to get into the American diplomatic pouch. He said, if this can help you to leave, because I've seen the atrocities, and if you are alive, come and let's see what we can do. So I came. I hadn't been trained in the United States of America, therefore I was not a doctor in their eyes.
Yeah. Okay.
So I had to go and sit with the students, sit with the residents, listen to their lectures, go out and take courses, because the old adage is that you have already failed if you have not tried.
Yeah.
And if you wake up in the morning and you have a wife and children, your obligation is there. I mean, you have to try. So that's what I did. I hadn't seen a physics book for I don't know how long, but I had to go and read some physics. And I tried, and it succeeded. And this guy who took me to see the dean of the University of Vanderbilt said to me, when I passed that examination, before I called my wife, I called him. And he said, hold it right there. He came, we went to see the dean, and he said, Dean Chapman, you remember my friend, Dr. Diggs? Well, he's just done so and so and so and so and so. And I'm going to ask him to join the faculty.
Wow.
And Dean Chapman said to him, Everett, Joe, Liberia's loss is Vanderbilt's gain.
Wow. I mean, that's so amazing now, Dr. Diggs. And I mean, my eyes is getting teary, but it's also inspiring. You were 45 years old, you left Liberia, had a booming career, started your career in your 20s. Now, you came to the US and your certificate was close to for one of word, was almost useless. Then you did the American exam, pass it, and this friend stood by you, and then you decided to start at the middle of the rung as a research associate. And I must tell my audience out there, in 2 years' time, you were able to navigate the field, became an assistant professor, and retired in 2015 as an associate professor of diagnostic radiology in the Department of Radiology at Vandenberg University. That is so awesome, Dr. Diggs. I'm so grateful and thankful to you for sharing your story this evening. It has been, I mean, it's so inspiring. There are thousands of us, and that's what I would like to say in this time. Thousands of us, or hundreds of us, or 20s of us, or tens of us who leave Liberia. We have academic degree, we have career, we come into this country, and we find out that either you did not have American experience, or you did not have a lot of time, and you have to start again. Some gave up, some gave up along the line. But yours is a story of someone who did not give at the age of 45. In 2 years' time, by 47, you have turned things around. In 2015, you retire as an associate professor at Vandenberg University. Thank you so much. There's one question that we ask you about, and I bring Steve back. So, and that could be your parting statement to us. What advice will you give young emerging Liberians struggling to make decisions about going back to build a career? And it's not even young Liberians. There are some of us who came in this country in our middle age, like you did. What do you advise to them? They are struggling to build a career here in the US, or even back home in Liberia.
You know, the history of the healthcare system in Liberia is long and is interesting. And maybe one of these days we can go back and tell it, because it began in the long before the 40s.
Wow.
And there are certain parts of the medicine that we need to focus on. I was invited in 2012 to give the commencement address to the graduating class of the A.M. Dogliotti College of Medicine, having been away from the country since 1980. One of my strongest desires was to be able to go back to Liberia when Liberia shall have risen, and go back into that classroom at the Dogliotti College of Medicine and at the JFK and begin teaching again. It didn't happen, but it happened in this lecture that I was invited to give. And in that lecture, the advice that I gave the graduating class that day was a theme concerning the science and the art of medicine. And I think that can be translated to any profession. In order to be a good doctor, you cannot only be practicing the science of medicine, but you must also know how to practice the art of medicine. Knowing how to practice the art of medicine makes you a compassionate physician. It makes you one that your patients will want to come back to. They want to know that you are a compassionate person. You can know all of the science and the biology and all of that. If you don't have a good bedside manners, you will always be found in the courts of law here in America. Now, the advice that, and I think this advice can be broadened to any profession, no matter whether you're an engineer or whatever you are. If you know all of your mathematics and you don't get along with your colleagues, you will be a failed engineer. Mm-hmm. I was happy and glad to be able to return for that last swan song, should I say, which I don't think will be continued because of my age and because of the condition of the country at this time. But I can tell you, Dr. George, if Liberia began to rise again, I'll be on the first plane, the first boat, at 88 years old, wanting to at least give some advice, give something back to our country that we love so well. Thank you for inviting me.
Thank you so much, Dr. Diggs. It has been so awesome. I'm very impressed with your career. Very impressed with the spaces you navigated and how you navigated the challenges you had in your life. And it's good to hear your story. And this story, I look forward to it impacting a lot of us who are from Liberia, and especially those of us who are young. There's more we can talk about. We could talk about being in the classroom in LU and currently how it looks like. But unfortunately, we don't have much time for that. Maybe I may have to invite you for us to talk about that on another program because we're looking forward to do something about this fraudulent activity with university degrees in Liberia maybe next month. So we'll talk back this, but thank you so much for being on this on the show, and thank you so much for the knowledge that you have impacted us. Yes. One of my favorite writers penned these words: higher than the highest human thoughts can reach is God's ideals for his children. Those words, which have been a source of my personal development, could be yours as well. I know we are all faced with challenges. We may be surrounded by situations that are bleak or outright hopeless. But let us remember the famous words: where there is might, there is a way. The story of Dr. Joseph Diggs could be yours too. He had left Liberia at a young age, going to Switzerland, where he had to learn a new language, to go into medical school, where he successfully navigated. And then there was a civil, while his career was booming back home, there was the coup of 1980, and he had to go down the middle rank of academics as an associate, a research associate. Did two years of studies again in order to get an American acceptance in the medical field. And today he's retired as a professor from the Vandenberg University. That is a great story. That could be yours too. So the good news is that he did not allow those challenges to determine his future path. He did press on, and is still pressing on towards his high calling. So brothers and sisters, I do not know what is stopping you from attaining your higher calling, whether it's finance, lousy governance, emotional torture, or distress. We know that when each of us summon our inner strength, we will overcome. And when we have overcome, Liberia shall indeed rise again. So until we meet next month, when my guest will be Dr. Ahrendts or Waterspoon from Germany will be joining us by the grace of God. We look forward to having you again on another edition of Liberia Shall Rise. Until that time, do have a wonderful evening and have a blessed time. Pray for Sheriff. He's in Liberia. He's going to be joining us very soon on one of our programs when he will sing up from Liberia. But do have a wonderful evening and blessings.